We turn now to the story about the future of a 3-year-old girl rescued after a military raid in Afghanistan. She's now at the center of court battles here in the U.S.
Show us how strong you are.
With training wheels and some encouragement, she looks like any other 3-year-old learning to ride a bike. But this child's story is anything but ordinary. It begins on the battlefield in Afghanistan in September 2019, when a counterterrorism team zeroed in on this remote compound. Baby Elle was severely injured in the raid, and her parents were killed. She was roughly 2 months old. As the child was treated in a military hospital, the mass began the process of officially adopting Baby Elle in the U.S. Meanwhile, the Afghan government and the International Red Cross searched for Baby Elle's biological family in Afghanistan. According to court documents, the baby was eventually given to an Afghan couple. The then Afghan government determined the husband to be the baby's first cousin. The couple asked to remain anonymous due to safety concerns for themselves and their families in Afghanistan.
So there's that young girl has been taken out of Afghanistan, and we hear there's family members around. Here's more details of how they broke in that compound, and again, her parents and siblings were all murdered, and she was brutally injured, but she was taken out. More details about how that went down.
An unclassified military report reviewed by CBS News found the child was likely the orphan daughter of an al-Qaeda foreign fighter who entered Afghanistan from a neighboring country.
The baby's right here in this corner.
David says partner Afghan forces then suggested throwing the baby in a nearby river.
They wanted me to throw the baby into the river because they believed that she was a terrorist. It was definitely not an option.
The Army Rangers made a car seat from scraps and medical equipment. A bandage wrapped around her head en route to a U.S. military hospital is one of her first known pictures. At a military base, Baby Elle was treated for fractures to her leg and skull and second-degree burns on her face and neck.
I know exactly where I was.
Joshua Mast, a Marine lawyer, was deployed to Afghanistan at the time. He wasn't on the raid, but says he heard about the child from his boss.
He's like, what the heck are we gonna do with this baby?
So they went in and felt they were doing the best thing for this child and took her, now have her in the United States. The family of hers, that cousin that they confirmed is her cousin, they're also in the United States because it was part of the whole pulling them, bringing them back out. But now as they adopted her and now have been raising her for a couple of years now, took her from that family who did have her at one point. That's the other sticking point about this. This looks like they just took her off the battlefield, and this orphan child from this daughter of an Afghanistan Taliban fighter, then that's the problem. It's gonna go down this way and we have to save her life. Seemed very heroic and humanistic, and we're gonna actually save this other person's life that we generally don't care about. But there's so many extra wrinkles to this. One part that the reason why they said they could do this is because Afghanistans don't know what adoption is. That's like a foreign concept. Let's watch them mention that.
As the Taliban took control of Afghanistan in 2021, the Afghan couple agreed to bring the baby to the United States. In a federal lawsuit, the Afghan couple claims the mass encouraged them to bring the baby to the U.S. solely for medical care, but never told them they had already adopted the baby.
Were you clear with the couple about your adoption?
Yes, because we were explaining substantively that we have to treat her like our other children in a way that to communicate the clearest we could that, hey, we're responsible for under US law.
But on the word adoption,
Sure.
Did you use the word adoption?
I don't think I used the word adoption. We were trying to explain again in a way that they would understand because they don't have a concept of adoption in Afghanistan.
No concept of it whatsoever. Also, by the way, so in order to make this whole thing happen, he convinced, because of his status, I guess, as a US Marine, convinced this rural Virginia court and judge to bypass normal rules and procedures to make sure this happened and then get that kid here. And they've been living with this child ever since. So really fast, Ben, there's a quote from this one particular article that really stood out to me, and the reasons why he thinks and they think they're doing the best thing. And I fully believe they think so. And this is where you have to have a little bit of effing self-reflection. By the way, obviously, she's Afghan and her family's Muslim, but they say what they did, and they're celebrating this adoption because they said it's an act of their Christian faith. What if this family and this girl don't want your Christian faith? What if that's yours and you think, I've got this superior belief system, I'm gonna put it on them, and that's why I have this God-given right to take a human being from their family. It's craziness.
Yeah. One of the things that's really important to understand, this is a built-in feature of the United States of America. The United States has always been like this, right? Like just to be like 100% real. I know people personally who are alive today that were put through residential schools, right? This is something that is like very recent in like American history and honestly still ongoing, right? And so like one of the things we need to understand about people who are in the military, I'm gonna go ahead and say that like categorically, being in the military does not make somebody a hero. And I would argue to say that the overwhelming majority of people in the military, as somebody who was in the military myself,
how do you know?
Are outright villainous, right? Just outright villainous, like straight up, because like the fact that they even like saved this baby and provided any medical care to this baby is really an exception, not the rule. Like I've personally witnessed a lot of service members who had no qualms killing babies, just to be very, very clear about what the United States military actually stands for. But no, like they say, like, oh, Christian faith, this, that, or the other thing. It's white supremacy. These people are like white supremacists, right? Like fundamentally, even if they wouldn't call themselves that is exactly the ideology that they are propagating. And the United States is built on white supremacy. It's literally built on taking children away from black and brown folks, from indigenous folks, right? From marginalized people, and either funneling them into foster care systems that are completely ineffective, or funneling them into like typically upper middle class white parents to try and indoctrinate them with a very, very restrictive notion of white evangelicism. And so like this is something that is pervasive throughout the United States of America. This is something that is deeply rooted within our history. And it is something that like fundamentally we need to address, because at its core, it is rooted in just absolute racism and white supremacy. The fact that this was even allowed to move forward, and the fact that they can even be on the news, like literally, like how are they the ones that are getting interviewed about how, oh, we really care about this child, and oh my goodness gracious. There's this baseline assumption that we should all just tolerate these like white supremacist evangelicals, that we should all just accept at face value that they're like these like peace-loving people that just care for this sweet innocent baby. When in reality, we know exactly what's going on, and they're trying to strip somebody, like a literal child away, whose parents were literally killed by the United States military, and strip them away from their people and their culture, right? Their history, like, and it's honestly really sickening.
But you know what? But that's, as I said it a minute ago, I think they truly believe they're doing the right thing. Like this is a better life for the child, and all this is the whole process goes. And this assumption that the only moral, good people in the country have to be white Christians. Just saying, it always breaks down that way. And then even when you're on the pedestal of I'm doing the right thing, even if there is no family for this kid, it's still the thought process is they should become me. That was a different human being. But somehow we can usurp her life and then change it, especially when a family is waiting to get their kid back. They have a nursery and a whole room set up for the kid. They're prepared. They live in Texas, I believe, is what they said. But of course, they're trying to be anonymous so they don't get any hatred for them for wanting their family member back.